So this is the continuation of my previous video lecture where we had learnt what engineering mechanics basically is, and we learned the bifurcation of engineering mechanics. Today we'll be understanding what is idealization that are done in engineering mechanics. Now this term idealization itself, it means that we are assuming some certain ideal conditions. The reason that we are assuming ideal conditions is because it makes the calculation simpler. It simplifies our process. It makes the calculation much less tedious. So the first idealization that we do is continuum. What is continuum is basically a solid body will be comprised of elementary particles like molecules, atoms or electrons, etc. But when we consider that body in engineering mechanics, we will not consider individual particles or molecules, atoms, but we will consider the whole body as one single unit. And let us say that if the force is acting on that body, we will be considering that it is acting on the entire unit. Okay, so mass of the body is assumed to be continuously distributed, and this assumption is called as continuum. So this is very straightforward assumption that we should not consider every elemental particle of a body. We should consider the entire body as a whole. Second, rigid body. Rigid body I had already explained in my previous video as well, that rigid body is the one which does not deform under loading, and in this the particles within the rigid body, they do not change their position after the loading is being done. So because of this, what happens, since the particles do not change their place and this particular structure is not going to deform, the load itself does not change its position, and because of this it becomes much easier for us to compute the reactions and further calculations also. It simplifies a lot. So this is one of the very important idealizations in engineering mechanics. Third is point force. This is very important. It is the simplification of force distribution transmitted through single point of contact is called as point force or point load. Say for example, we have this bench. On this bench there are these people who are sitting. I want to analyze the bench and as a structure I want to analyze what are the reactions that the legs of the bench are going to give. So for that, first thing that I have to do is I have to put load on that bench, because until and unless I do not put load on the bench, how am I going to analyze it? Now the question arises is that what kind of loading am I supposed to put on the bench? When the contact area of, for example, these person are putting the load on this bench, so when the contact area between the person and the bench is small, in such case we can assume these persons to be a point load or a point force. So this is how we can simplify the process. In reality there is no such load like a point load, because you can see the entire load of that person is being concentrated on this small point, which is like absurd, because how can the entire weight of that person be concentrated into a small point? It is actually distributed, but if that area of distribution is very less, if the area of contact between the person and that bench is very less, we can assume it to be a point force. Another example that we can take is like if you are standing on the bench, then the area of contact, for example, let's say that you are like this, okay, just pardon my drawing. If this is the area of contact, the area of contact is very small between the bench and you. So this area of contact, we can idealize the weight of this person to be acting as a point load on this bench, and the point where it is going to act point load is, for example, we have this structure here, okay, and there is something kept over it. The load is or the entire mass of this body is concentrated at this point, what we call as CG, and CG is acting like this. This is the weight. So exactly below CG, whatever point we get, that is the point where we consider the point load to be acting. Alright, So this is the point force idealization. Fourth is particle. Now a particle is defined as an object that has no size but has a mass. This idealization is important for those cases where distribution of mass is not important. So first we'll understand where the distribution of mass is important, and then we'll understand where the distribution of mass is not important. Let us take this first case in which you can see the ballerina, she is dancing, she is spinning basically. So we can see that when she folds her hands towards herself, the rate of spinning increases, and when the hands are outwards, the rate of spinning decreases. This is basically the conservation of angular momentum. You might have learned this in your physics. But what we are interested here is that when the mass distribution is towards her, when the mass distribution is near to the axis of the rotation, that time her spinning is increasing. When the mass distribution is outwards, her spinning is decreasing. So this is the case where distribution of mass is important. But consider the same ballerina sitting on a motorcycle and going ahead. In this case, it does not matter whether her hands are folded in or whether her hands are spread out. It does not matter, but the velocity will be same throughout the body, and what is only important here is the mass of that ballerina. For example, when she is sitting on the bike, I want to know what is the momentum of her. Now momentum is given by a simple formula, which is mass into velocity. Okay, velocity will be the one by which she is traveling, mass will be her entire body mass. So here I am not at all interested in how that mass is distributed, but I just want to know the entire mass so that I can calculate the momentum. So in this second case, when the distribution of mass is not important, in such a case I can consider that ballerina to be a particle. One more example where we can consider a particle is the trajectory of planets. In that the size of the planet does not matter, the mass distribution of the planet does not matter. What only matters is the mass of the planet. So I think it is given by Kepler's law how the trajectory of the planet goes on. So there only the mass of the planet is important, not the size of the planet. Even in this formula, you might be knowing the formula of gravitation, Gm1m2 upon r square. This r is the distance between those two bodies. So here also the size of the body and the mass distribution of the body is not important, but only the mass of the body is important. The entire mass of the body is important. Now we study the laws of mechanics. The first one is Newton's first law. It states that every body continues to be in state of rest or uniform motion in a straight line unless it is compelled by an external agency acting on it. So what it says is, if there is a body which is in rest position, it will stay in rest till there is any force that is acting on it. The moment a force acts on it, it will start a motion, and it will continue to be in motion unless there is another force that is acting on it, which changes its path of motion, which changes the path of its trajectory, or which completely stops that particular body or that object, right? So this is what Newton's first law says. Therefore, force would be an external agency which changes or tends to change the state of rest or state of uniform motion. So force is the one which is either it is causing the motion or either it is stopping the motion. There are various kinds of force. For example, like in cars we have brakes which stop the motion of the car. So brakes are basically frictional, they are applying the frictional force, right? So there are various types of force which can act on a body, and they can alternate the way how the body behaves in a different manner. Newton's second law, it states that rate of change of momentum of a body is directly proportional to the impressed force, and it takes place in the direction of force acting on it. What it is saying is that rate of change of momentum is equal to force. Let us say that we have this truck and we have this bike here. According to Newton's second law, it is saying that force is directly proportional to rate of change of momentum. So and momentum is equal to mass into velocity. So let us say that this has a mass of m1, this has a mass of m2, both are moving with a velocity of v1, let's say, okay, both are moving with a velocity of v1, or for that matter, let us just give them numbers, okay. This mass m1, I'll say it is a 1000 kg truck, and the velocity by which it is moving is let us say it is 5 meters per second. Here also this mass I will give it as 100 kg, and the velocity it is moving is 5 meters per second. So what is the momentum when it is moving? It is mass into velocity. So momentum when it is moving would be 1000 into 5, which is 5000 kg meters per second is your momentum. I will say let us call it as MO1, okay, just giving a name, and MO2 will be 100 into 5, which is 500 kg meters per second. These are your walls, okay. So let us say that they come and they hit this wall. So which of them is going to put the greatest force on the wall? It is obviously the truck. We know that the truck is going to put the greatest force on the wall, but how? We need that proof, right? So proof is in this equation that force is directly proportional to rate of change of momentum. Once they start moving and once they hit the wall, they come to rest, right? They completely come to rest. So now the v velocity has become 0. Here also velocity has become 0. Here the momentum will be, let's say, mo2 dash is equal to 0 and mo1 dash is also equal to 0. So how much is change in momentum here? Is it not 5000 minus 0, which is the change in momentum is 5000 for the truck, and the change in momentum is 500 for bike. So this itself says that if force is directly proportional to rate of change of momentum, this calculation itself tells us that truck is going to produce the greatest force as compared to the bike here. So force is directly proportional to mass into rate of change of velocity. Force is directly proportional to mass into acceleration, because rate of change of velocity is nothing but acceleration. It is v2 minus v1 upon t, that is the change in velocity per unit the time in which it is changing. So this is nothing but your acceleration, isn't it? So mass into acceleration is your force. Newton's third law, a very famous law, it states that for every action there is an equal and opposite reaction. Yeah, so in this example, the reason that this person is not falling from the chair is because of Newton's third law. What is the action and what is the reaction? The action is the weight of that person is the action. Reaction is what chair is giving to his weight. Because the chair is able to give that reaction, that is the reason this person is able to sit on this chair. There is one more action here. The entire chair is able to rest on the ground. So the reason that it is able to rest on the ground is because the ground is able to give a reaction to the chair. So if the ground itself could not give reaction to the chair, this person would have fallen down along with the chair, right? So the action in this case was the total weight of the chair plus the person. That is the total action, and this is the reaction. So for every action there is an equal and opposite reaction. One more, we'll see an example. So if we keep a ladder like this without any support here, and if the friction is not good, then what will happen is this ladder will fall down. So this is the reason we have to sometimes put a stopper here. What is this stopper doing? When the ladder was falling down, what it did was, see, it produced a horizontal movement here, right? It produced a horizontal movement. So that horizontal movement had some force with it. This stopper is giving the reaction to that force, and it is giving equal and opposite reaction. Due to this, the ladder is able to sustain at that position. Had that stopper not been there, or if the friction force was very less, then the ladder will slip down. Sometimes even we have to put our leg, we have to stop that ladder by the foot. So this is all done to give equal and opposite reactions. Fourth law is Newton's law of gravitation. The force of attraction between any two bodies is directly proportional to their masses and inversely proportional to the square of the distance between them. So we have this mass m1 and m2, and let's say that the distance between them is d. So the Newton's law of gravitation states that F is equal to g into m1 m2 upon d square. So again, in this equation, what we can see is that we have considered these to be as a particle because we only need their mass and we do not need the size of that particle. G is the constant of gravitation and F is the force of attraction between these two bodies. Again, this is just an elementary physics. We have studied all of this in the physics. Fifth law, law of transmissibility of force. According to this law, the state of rest or motion of the rigid body is unaltered if force acting on a body is replaced by another force of the same magnitude and direction but anywhere on the body along the line of action. A very long statement, but a very simple statement. Consider that there is a train, okay, and this train is moving in this direction. This is the engine which is taking all these coach in this direction, to the right direction. Think what will happen if I just alter the position of this engine. If I bring this engine here, can this train still move in this direction? The answer is yes, it can still move in that direction. Because this engine just has to carry these two together and it has to push this one, right? What will happen if again I interchange the position of engine? Can it still move in this direction? Yes. So what this law says is that the motion of the body remains unaltered if the force that is acting. So this engine was the one which was giving the force so that the entire train could go in one direction. So when it was here, it could give that force. When it came here, again that it could give the same force. When it came here, again it could give the same force, and the direction of the train did not alter by any means. So what it is saying is that if I put force at any other point in its line of action, then the effect of the force does not change. For example, see, if this is a force, it is acting on a particular body, the line of action would be called as this. This is the line of action. Along that force would be called as line of action. So if I place this force anywhere here on this line of action, the effect of the force is not going to change. The ultimate effect of the force is not going to change, right? So whether if I place my force here or if I place my force here, it is still going to take this body in this direction only. Okay, so that's it for today's lecture. In the next lecture we'll continue with law of mechanics. Till then, take care. Thank you.